I am Eleanor, and the quiet, elegant efficiency of my revenge was born from my background as a retired accountant and a vigilant, suspicious mother. The entire crisis centered on a $95,000 fund, money I had earmarked for my daughter, Sarah, and her future, either for a business venture or a much-needed home down payment. My son-in-law, Marcus, was the antithesis of everything I valued, shiftless, entitled, and possessing a crippling belief that the world, particularly my family, owed him a luxurious lifestyle. He viewed the $95,000 not as a foundational opportunity for Sarah, but as a windfall, easy money that had simply materialized in their joint account. I had warned Sarah about his financial irresponsibility countless times, always met with her heartbroken defense of his potential. My protective vigilance was unwavering, and I had quietly ensured I retained access to monitor the family's main savings account, a boundary I knew was justified by Marcus's sickness of entitlement and his chronic inability to manage money. I knew, with cold certainty, that the temptation would be too great for him to resist. The first alarm bell rang not with a loud crash, but with a cold, digital ping in my personal email inbox. 2 days ago, a large, single-sum withdrawal notification flashed on my screen, showing the $95,000 was gone. The entire fund was wiped clean. As a retired forensic accountant, I immediately investigated the details. The withdrawal was executed entirely in cash, structured in a way designed to obscure the immediate destination, a classic, amateur flight tactic. When I called Marcus, his voice was immediately tight, strained, and riddled with pathetic, transparent lies. He claimed they were transferring the funds to a new, higher interest CD, but he couldn't name the bank, the rate, or the maturity date. His desperate evasions only confirmed my deepest suspicion. My heart ached for Sarah, knowing her hope and trust had been so casually shattered, especially with Christmas looming. The crime was immense, calculated, and carried out with a callous disregard for the emotional safety of his wife. The situation escalated violently 2 days before the major family Christmas gathering, an event Marcus typically used to beg for business loans. He vanished. His absence wasn't accidental, it was a deliberate evacuation. Sarah was in tears, confused by a vague, panicked text from him claiming urgent, unexpected business travel to a nameless client. She desperately clung to the belief that he would return by Christmas morning. I, however, recognized the clear pattern. This was an immediate flight maneuver, timed precisely to maximize the stolen funds before anyone had time to process the theft and contact authorities. The sheer emotional cruelty of abandoning Sarah right before Christmas fueled my growing resolve. Marcus had turned our most sacred family holiday into the stage for his betrayal. He didn't just steal the money, he stole Sarah's security and her Christmas peace. I moved immediately past panic, knowing time was now the critical asset in the coming pursuit. Moving past the emotional paralysis, I remembered the only advantage I possessed over Marcus, my foresight. 3 years prior, when Marcus began driving a beat-up sedan on long client commutes, I had purchased a discreet, high-utility GPS tracking program called LifeLocate. I had convinced him it was essential for road safety and emergency location, installing the sophisticated app directly onto his smartphone with full administrative permissions. Now, I bypassed the simplistic family passcode he had set and immediately activated the tracking feature, watching the application whir to life. The moment the satellite lock was achieved, a cold, hard digital pin appeared on the map, far from any client or family member. It was the moment of truth. The app, once a symbol of a mother's cautious worry, was now the precise instrument of justice that would expose his exact location and his desperate plan to escape the city before the inevitable financial audit began. The GPS trace immediately confirmed Marcus's frantic flight. The digital pin was completely stationary, over 300 desolate miles away from our warm, familiar suburban town. He was parked near a remote, run-down motel complex situated just off a nameless highway, a location utterly devoid of any legitimate business or client interaction. It was the textbook definition of a skipping town maneuver, designed to maximize distance and minimize detection. The geographical distance of 300 miles confirmed the scope of his betrayal. This wasn't a sudden emergency or a brief trip. He was hiding, waiting for the uproar to die down before liquidating the remaining physical assets and vanishing entirely. My heart ached for Sarah, who was still desperately trying to call his disconnected number. I knew then that waiting for the police to act was not an option. The bureaucracy would consume the critical hours I needed to recover the cash. The truth was harsh. I had to personally drive the distance, track the signal, and retrieve the stolen funds before Marcus completed his escape. My initial analysis focused on the mechanics of the crime. Marcus wouldn't stop driving and settle at a motel unless he had the physical $95,000 cash bundle securely with him. The sheer volume of $95,000 in small denominations would require significant physical storage. I analyzed the specific model of his vehicle, a heavy-duty, older model sedan known for its spacious, deep trunk and thick steel body, an ideal car for concealing physical assets. I realized the scale of the task. I couldn't simply call the police and hope they recovered the cash. Marcus would deny everything and disappear, and the police would only find an empty motel room. I, Eleanor, a retired 65-year-old accountant, was staring down a cross-country vigilante mission. My old age meant I needed to prioritize stealth and knowledge over brute force. The physical act of recovering the money from his car's hidden compartments was now the critical objective. The weight of the task demanded immediate, skilled backup. I called my trusted friend, Brenda, a woman whose calm demeanor belied a formidable professional past as a former police dispatcher and security guard. Brenda, at 68, possessed the ideal combination of operational discretion, technical knowledge, and nerves of steel. I revealed the full, shocking story, the stolen money, Marcus's flight, and the precise GPS coordinates. Brenda didn't hesitate. She immediately understood the urgency and the necessity of secrecy. We quickly dubbed the clandestine mission Operation Scrooge, a dark joke about retrieving the stolen Christmas funds. Her role would be crucial. She possessed the necessary training in silent access techniques and would serve as my protective lookout and expert driver. Secrecy was paramount. Sarah remained heartbroken but oblivious to the active pursuit unfolding hundreds of miles away. With Brenda secured, I moved on to a deeper digital dive, transforming my home office into a temporary investigation command center. The initial GPS coordinates were only the start. I conducted a thorough forensic analysis of the metadata linked to Marcus's device history. My worst fears were confirmed. His recent search history included terms like cash sale old car, one-way bus tickets Mexico, and border crossing remote. This information provided definitive proof that his plan was not a temporary flight but a deliberate, immediate liquidation of his last asset, the car, followed by a total, permanent vanishing act. The clock was ticking violently. He was likely planning to sell the sedan within the next 48 hours, exchange the cash for foreign currency, and disappear across the border. This confirmation reinforced the extreme urgency of the mission. We had to reach the motel and secure the money before he completed his final, irreversible step. To ensure our safety and success, I executed a subtle reconnaissance and distraction operation. I placed a call to Marcus, feigning intense, tearful worry over his vague text message about urgent business. I used the call to confirm subtle details about his general region and his current motel situation without revealing I knew his precise address. I played the role of the distraught, worried mother-in-law perfectly. Marcus, a terrible liar burdened by his guilt and high-speed driving, quickly became defensive and annoyed, assuring me everything was fine and he would be back after the new year. His nervous, flustered answers confirmed the desolation of his surroundings and lulled him into a fatal sense of security, convincing him that my worries were merely emotional, not investigative. He believed his deception was complete. I ended the call, knowing he was satisfied I had been dismissed, and immediately began final preparations for the cold, cross-country drive with Brenda. The long, cold journey began just 2 days before Christmas, the car packed not with gifts, but with survival and surveillance tools. Brenda drove the first leg, maintaining a meticulous, inconspicuous pace. Our operational supplies included basic lockpicking implements, a slim gym, specially modified coat hangers, powerful flashlights, dark clothing, and thick gloves designed to leave no traceable fingerprints. The physical exhaustion was profound, a brutal challenge for two women in their late 60s, but the emotional fuel was stronger than any fatigue. The road was empty, desolate, mirroring the hollow emptiness Marcus had left behind. I sat in the passenger seat, staring out at the frozen landscape, the weight of my daughter's shattered marriage and the mission's financial stakes heavy on my mind. I knew the danger was real. Desperate people commit desperate acts. We were entering unknown territory, driven only by a mother's fierce, protective love and a need for absolute justice. Arrival at the remote, grim motel was late, well past midnight. The complex was small, dimly lit, and utterly anonymous, the perfect temporary hideout for a thief trying to vanish. Eleanor, monitoring the LifeLocate app on her laptop, running off a portable power bank, confirmed Marcus was stationary, his phone's signal originating from room 14, and the car, the heavy sedan, was parked conspicuously close to his window. The darkness was our ally, the silence absolute. Brenda, the former security guard, began a meticulous surveillance pattern from our own rented, inconspicuous vehicle parked several rows away. We waited, watching the opaque windows of room 14, monitoring the digital signals. The tension was immense. We were only feet away from the stolen money and the desperate, cornered thief who possessed it. We needed Marcus to be deeply asleep or distracted before we risked the silent approach to the sedan. Eleanor's accountant's eye for detail proved invaluable in the silent surveillance. She watched Marcus's room for over an hour, noting his extreme paranoia. He would periodically emerge, check his mirrors, and place a hand briefly on the car's trunk, a protective, possessive gesture confirming the money's location. Eleanor immediately deduced the hiding spot was indeed in the trunk, likely concealed within the spare tire compartment or a factory panel, due to the protective gesture. The objective was clear: gain access to the trunk without setting off the main car alarm, which would be linked to the cabin doors. Accessing the trunk lock directly was too high risk. We needed a quiet, internal, manual bypass. This realization narrowed the search to the car's internal cabin and the obscure location of its hidden manual trunk release mechanism, a technical flaw we needed to exploit. The infiltration began with the subtle, silent skill of Brenda. She approached the sedan, a shadow in the deep parking lot darkness. Using a small, specialized, old-school slim gym tool disguised as a modified coat hanger, she worked silently and quickly on the passenger side door lock. The process took agonizing minutes, the tension magnified by the fear of a sudden noise. Finally, with a soft, mechanical click that was barely audible, Brenda successfully gained access to the car's main cabin, the critical first step. This silent entry avoided the high-security trunk lock and prevented setting off the main alarm system. We knew the money wasn't in the cabin. This entry was purely logistical. Eleanor slipped in immediately, clutching a powerful, focused beam flashlight, and began the frantic, silent search for the manual trunk latch release, the key to the treasure. They searched the cabin first, frantically but methodically, finding nothing but fast food wrappers and Marcus's personal junk. The electric trunk lock button, typically near the driver's footwell, was useless, as pressing it would risk the loud, telltale clunk of the solenoid releasing, potentially waking Marcus. Eleanor knew they needed the obscure, manual trunk release latch, a necessary safety feature often hidden away by manufacturers. Her prior research on this specific sedan model, focusing on common theft points and service manuals, paid off. She knew the latch was often deliberately concealed beneath the rear seat carpet or a removable panel. The minutes stretched into an agonizing span of time. Every second spent inside the car increased the risk of Marcus looking out his window and discovering the silent break-in. After what felt like an eternity of agonizing, silent searching, pressing along the edges of the thick carpet lining the back seat, Eleanor's old-school investigative instincts paid off with profound relief. Her fingers brushed against a stiff, nylon loop hidden beneath a flap of carpet near the center console, the manual emergency release. She gave it a firm, quiet pull. A faint, low mechanical thunk echoed softly from the rear of the vehicle, a sound muffled by the empty parking lot's vastness. The trunk was now quietly ajar, unlocked and accessible. Access achieved. The immediate, tense fear of being caught was replaced by a surge of pure, quiet adrenaline. Eleanor and Brenda quickly and silently exited the car, leaving the cabin undisturbed, and moved to the rear of the sedan. The true treasure hunt, recovering the stolen $95,000, was now ready to begin in the trunk's dark compartment. Inside the deep, dark well of the trunk, illuminated by the muted beam of Eleanor's flashlight, they immediately saw Marcus's belongings, a change of clothes, some fast food bags, and an old, dirty canvas gym bag. This was the target. Eleanor lifted the dusty gym bag, feeling its significant weight, and placed it on the trunk floor. She lifted the spare tire panel beneath it, revealing the factory-installed compartment designed for small tools and emergency equipment. There, tucked securely beneath the heavy rubber tire, was the massive $95,000 cash bundle, neatly wrapped in rubber bands and sealed inside plastic freezer bags to prevent dampness. The sight of the money confirmed the full, horrifying extent of the betrayal, and the immense, criminal risk Marcus had taken. Eleanor quickly counted the money, her heart pounding with a mixture of professional satisfaction and maternal rage. The entire $95,000 was there, pristine and waiting for recovery. The extraction needed to be surgically precise to ensure Marcus believed the money was still safe. Eleanor took out her smartphone and executed the second critical step of the plan, securing the forensic proof. She took multiple high-resolution, time-stamped pictures of the cash bundle, capturing the stacks of money and the gym bag in the car trunk as irrefutable evidence of the location of the theft. These photos, proving possession and concealment in a fleeing vehicle, were the legal anchor for the charges to come. With the evidence secured, they prepared for the switch. The money, the tangible evidence of the crime, was safely transferred into Eleanor's own secure, discreet carry bag. The trunk space was now empty, the scent of justice already filling the cold night air. The crucial next phase was the silent, undetectable switch, the perfect misdirection. Following their meticulous plan, they retrieved the bundles of pre-cut newspaper from Brenda's bag, newspaper that had been precisely cut and bound to mimic the size and feel of the cash stacks. They carefully replaced the entire $95,000 cash bundle with these thick bundles of newspaper, ensuring the decoy stacks were sealed into the plastic freezer bags exactly as the original cash had been. They then replaced the gym bag, ensuring the newspaper bundles maintained the exact weight and shape of the original cash bundle. Every step was executed to ensure that if Marcus casually checked the bag, its weight and density would feel identical to the real money. The spare tire panel was perfectly resealed, and the gym bag was returned to its original, dusty position in the trunk. The trap was now sprung, baited with nothing but paper. With the money secured and the decoy in place, Eleanor and Brenda performed the silent retreat. Eleanor gently lowered the trunk lid, clicking it into its locked position with a soft, careful motion. They scanned the entire perimeter for any signs of disturbance, a loose leaf, a footprint, a shifted stone, and found none. They raced back to their rental vehicle with the $95,000 secured in a bag between them. The adrenaline surged through Eleanor, not from fear, but from the immense relief of success. They drove away from the desolate motel grounds, leaving the car undisturbed and Marcus oblivious, vanishing back onto the empty interstate. They had successfully completed the remote recovery, leaving behind only the profound confusion that would soon shatter Marcus's life. As they drove, Eleanor executed the final surveillance step of Operation Scrooge. She continued to monitor the LifeLocate app from a safe distance, watching the Room 14 signal. Hours later, as dawn broke, the signal moved. Marcus was awake. Eleanor watched the dot on the map shift briefly as he checked his trunk, confirming his security. He must have felt the weighted bag and assumed his plan was safe. Satisfied, the dot began moving rapidly south, accelerating onto the interstate toward the border, the planned skip-town move. The bait was taken. Marcus was driving hundreds of miles away, believing he carried $95,000 in cash, while the true money was safely secured with the two elderly women he assumed were home preparing for Christmas. Eleanor finally allowed herself a small, victorious smile. Eleanor was home safe with the money secured in her safe deposit box. She waited until Marcus was over 500 miles away, driving rapidly south, before executing the final confrontation. She placed the call, her voice calm and firm. Marcus answered, sounding annoyed by the interruption to his flight. She dropped the initial bomb. Marcus, stop the car. I know you stole the $95,000. And I know exactly where you are, thanks to the LifeLocate app on your phone. He denied it furiously, claiming she was delusional and threatening to call the police. He was still driving, convinced she was bluffing and hundreds of miles away. Eleanor let him rage, allowing his denial to be recorded on her end, another piece of evidence against him. Eleanor delivered the crushing, final blow. Stop driving, Marcus. I need you to pull over and check your gym bag now. The denial stopped instantly, replaced by a terrifying, tense silence on the line. She heard the sound of tires screeching as he frantically pulled over onto the shoulder of the highway. I think you'll find the only thing missing is $95,000 in cash, and I have pictures of the gym bag, the car trunk, and the cash itself, taken hours ago. What you have is newspaper. The auditory climax was devastating, the sound of the gym bag being violently ripped open, followed by a raw, guttural scream of pure despair and ruin as he discovered the paper bundles. The sound confirmed everything. Eleanor hung up the phone, the mission complete. Marcus, utterly broken and facing the true scope of his failure, called Sarah in a panicked, tearful breakdown. He confessed everything, the theft, the flight, the paper in the trunk, the total destruction of his future. Sarah, initially heartbroken by his confession, found a sudden, profound strength and clarity in her mother's precise, surgical actions. She realized her mother had not only protected her financially but had finally exposed the toxic, criminal truth of the man she had married. She was devastated by the betrayal but empowered by the final, irrefutable evidence of his wickedness. Her emotional paralysis was over, she was ready to move forward, protected and secure, realizing that her mother's cold vigilance had been an act of profound, enduring love. The legal and public consequences for Marcus were swift and absolute. Eleanor immediately presented the irrefutable evidence, the original bank withdrawal notice, the GPS tracking log, and the time-stamped pictures of the cash in his trunk, to her lawyer. Marcus was exposed publicly and legally for grand theft and financial fraud against his own family. Sarah, now fully empowered, filed for divorce immediately, citing financial fraud and malicious intent, which ensured a quick, favorable settlement. Eleanor secured the formal return of the $95,000 to Sarah's sole name and ensured Marcus faced the appropriate legal consequences for his criminal actions. His reputation was ruined, his marriage was over, and his career prospects were permanently decimated. Christmas morning arrived, quiet, simple, and utterly victorious. Eleanor, Sarah, and Brenda gathered for a peaceful, safe celebration. The $95,000 was safe, secured in a trust solely in Sarah's name. The family was finally free of the toxic, destructive influence of Marcus. Eleanor reflected on the power of a mother's vigilance, the unexpected utility of a simple, hidden GPS tracking app, and the precision of planning. She had not only recovered the money but had delivered justice and secured her daughter's peace of mind, transforming a moment of profound betrayal into a quiet, enduring victory defined by intelligence and strength.